What's up, Taiwan? I'm Leslie Liao with news from here in Taiwan and around the world. Taiwan has been buying more high-tech weapons from the U.S., including nearly 300 advanced attack drones last year. These weapons are essential for asymmetric warfare, and as Alan Liu reports, the first batch has now arrived on Taiwan soil.
Hitting targets and surveilling the air. These drones could be Taiwan's next big step in weapons advancement. The country has just received its first batch of OTS-600M attack drones from the US. Technology that can fly for up to 4 hours, travel hundreds of kilometers, resist electronic attacks, and even carry anti-tank missiles.
它的弹头比早期的像弹簧刀300一类的产品要大，所以它是可以有效的对付重型的装甲车辆，比方说战车、步兵战斗车这一类的目标。那对台湾而言，这是相对实用的。
As Taiwan faces growing military pressure from China, the country in recent years has been buying more drones to boost its asymmetric warfare capabilities. It even plans to procure nearly 50,000 indigenous drones by 2027. But adding more drones into the military's arsenal is just the beginning. Analysts say more needs to be done.
部队需要去建立它的作战概念，就是我们必须要把它真正融入未来我们对战场的想象里面，它应该要扮演什么样的角色，这个必须要研发出来，需要建立相关的 doctrine， 然后需要采购足够的数量之外，我们也需要制度的配合。
This shipment marks the fastest U.S. arms delivery to Taiwan in almost 20 years. A big win, given the billions of U.S. dollars worth of weapons still on back order. And Taiwan isn't stopping there. Officials say they're considering buying another 1,000 drones. Defense Minister Wellington Koo says the OTS-700 is one option on the table.
这个 RTX 600之外他们也会有精进这个700的部分，RTX 700。那我们也会按照我们的这个联合战力的规划，如果预算可以的话，我们就会来适时的筹获。
Taiwan has been stepping up military cooperation with the U.S. A new congressional report says Washington is open more security channels, like drawdown authority and foreign military financing, meaning drone deals like this one could become routine. Dolphin Chen and Alan Liu for TaiwanPlus.
Prosecutors have raided the Taiwan office of Japanese company Tokyo Electron, according to the Financial Times. It's part of an investigation into the alleged theft of trade secrets from Taiwan's chip giant TSMC. In a statement to TaiwanPlus, TSMC acknowledged the case has been passed on to prosecutors, but declined to give any further details. The prosecutor's office would not comment on the report. For more on what this case could mean for the AI industry in Taiwan and globally, Chris Gorin spoke to tech industry analyst Dave Nicholson of the Futurum Group.
So Dave, as you know, 3 people have been detained for allegedly stealing trade secrets related to chip giant TSMC's technology and possibly violating the National Security Act. I just want to start with getting your reaction to the case.
Shocking, surprising, while at the same time, if anyone had asked probably you or myself, is something like this likely to happen, we would have said, oh yeah, of course. I think it'll be really interesting as details emerge.
Neither TSMC nor the prosecutor's office have said publicly which technology was at risk of being stolen here. But if I can ask you to speculate just a little bit, what kind of tech do you think the alleged thieves might have been after?
Well, we would assume that the most valuable technology would be the most likely to target. But then that would be an assumption. The assumption is 2 nanometer is what folks are going after. And that, we're in the middle of a global, we call it a Cold War, but it's a war for AI dominance. TSMC is the holder of the most valuable information on the latest generation technology that's going to support AI. Because when you think about this, there's sort of 2 vectors that are involved, and it'll be interesting to see how they converge. There's the question of, are there state actors involved or not, that are looking at this as sort of part of this arms race, the global Cold War for AI. You would think they'd be going after the crown jewels, 2 nanometer. On the other hand, if it's simply commercial, if it's simply highly organized crime, they could be going after anything that will make them money. I think that, my bet is that I won't make a bet. I think it's easy to assume it's 2 nanometer, but I don't think we know yet.
The Financial Times and others have reported that the Taiwan offices of the Japanese company Tokyo Electron have also been raided. Did that come as a surprise to you?
The natural assumption on a lot of people's part would be, oh, it's got to be China. It's mainland China. Clearly, they're in there. They steal intellectual property all the time. That's all they do, right? That's the cliche. Well, guess what? There are a lot of other folks who can profit from this kind of technology. And there are quite a few state actors who see this as strategically important, not necessarily in the military sense, but in an economic sense. So could we draw a conclusion that maybe there is Japanese government somehow involvement in this? At this point, that's all spy novel speculation. Does the company itself have something to do with this? I think that's a little bit more reasonable to speculate, but then who knows what they could be the front for? Think about a really, really good way to hide your tracks. Well, you don't hide your tracks by having the breadcrumb trail lead directly to your doorstep.
Given the national security and economic stakes you're talking about, do you think that this case is going to lead to a big wave of increased security measures across the industry?
It should. Yeah, I hope so. They're all, this is, again, we're all shocked, but no one is surprised. And yeah, I would say that if I am the CISO, Chief Information Security Officer in a company, I'm probably not getting a lot of sleep tonight. I'm probably going to be up early tomorrow morning, and it's it's drill time, it's audit time.
That was Dave Nicholson of the Futurum Group. Taiwan's Economy Ministry says it's reviewing new regulations banning indirect imports of Chinese cars. That's after reports that Chinese EV manufacturer BYD plans to enter Taiwan's auto market by assembling vehicles in Thailand and selling through a local Taiwanese agent. Direct imports of Chinese cars are currently banned in Taiwan, and vehicles with Chinese components must meet strict localization guidelines. The ministry is reviewing regulations intended to address safety and national security concerns while protecting Taiwan's automobile industry. It expects to announce the new rules by the end of the year. Efforts to crack down on scammers in Taiwan often leave migrant workers behind. A rights group is sounding the alarm and has gotten some lawmakers on its side. But as John Van Triest reports, campaigners say there's a lot to do.
A new survey released today at the legislature shows that when migrant workers come to Taiwan, they don't just face a language barrier and the other ordinary challenges of a new life in an unfamiliar country. This survey suggests they're also at high risk from scammers. The survey of migrant workers by NGO Trans-Asia Sisters Association Taiwan found 30% of migrant workers have encountered a scam here, with around half that number saying they fell for it. These scams take many forms, including the typical online shopping and romance scams that have become a problem for Taiwanese people as well. But there are also people out there ready to exploit the special vulnerabilities migrant workers have. One researcher behind the survey says some scammers offer to introduce high-paying jobs for a fee, only to run off with the money. And then there are people who pretend to be the police or a government agency to extort people.
只要有人一说，我其实是移民署来的，或者是我是那个劳动部的官员，然后讲话就是很有自信的时候，很多移民移工就相信了。这其实有一个很大的漏洞，就是政府是缺席的，所以他的名字被诈骗者当成是一个很好的诈骗工具。
Another researcher says the system as it stands now, with migrant workers unable to change employers and tempted to work illegally, creates conditions ripe for scammers to exploit. She also says migrant workers have little information about their rights or ways to flag abuse in their own languages.
我们的网站基本上中文，即便现在你去问移民署，他们一定或者相关部会一定说我们有多语翻译。可是你们知道那多语翻译有多瞎吗？瞎到就是母语人看不懂。
Two lawmakers are here to say this must stop, and that the government must step in. They say foreign language support and solutions for migrant workers' practical needs, especially for sending money back home, are key.
能不能考虑能够提供合法的汇兑？用 APP 不见得一定要用我们的银行来做。那当然，我们也要针对这个语言的界面服务的时间呢，好，能够去考虑到这些人的需求。
The activists gathered here have 4 demands based on the survey results. They want more channels for multilingual information. They want closer work with NGOs migrant workers trust. They want an easier way for migrant workers to flag scammers. And they say the government should improve working conditions that see some workers flee their employers and become vulnerable to scammers as they do illegal jobs. The presence of lawmakers here today suggests that the report has the ears of at least some in the government. The migrant rights workers activists hope that this will bring their 4 demands forward. Hank Xu and John Van Trieste in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
For the first time, Taiwanese representatives are joining memorial services for the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The bombings 80 years ago ushered in the atomic age and hastened the fall of the Japanese Empire, bringing an end to Japan's colonial rule in Taiwan. Bryn Thomas reports from Hiroshima.
At 2:45 in the morning, August 6, 1945, Colonel Tibbets takes the Enola Gay down the runway into the air, beginning the 6.5-hour flight to Japan. The Enola Gay begins the bomb run. The bomb is dropped.
80 years ago, at about 8:15 in the morning, the people of Hiroshima saw a blinding flash in the sky. An atomic bomb dropped by the United States exploded about 600 meters above where I'm standing right now.
原子爆弾が投下され、一瞬にして当たり前の日常が消えました。誰なのかわからないぐらい皮膚がただれた人々、涙とともに止まらない絶望の声。
On the 80th anniversary of the atomic bombing, Taiwanese representatives are joining the annual Peace Memorial Ceremony for the first time ever. This event, held every year since 1947, honors the roughly 140,000 victims of a 1945 bombing and calls for a world free of nuclear weapons. Taiwan has never officially been included in this ceremony, despite its connection to Japan's wartime history. Taiwan was part of the Japanese Empire at the time, and while records are incomplete, historians estimate around 2,000 Taiwanese were killed at Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
It took until 2008, actually, for Taiwanese, and I think any kind of non-Japanese, to have their medical records assessed outside of Japan. They also had to provide documentation of being within the bomb blast area, and that was quite difficult for them to provide decades after the incident.
And while Taiwan's role in Japanese history may often be overlooked, events like this are important in determining its future. Taiwan's ambassador to Japan, Li Yang, was seen shaking hands and talking with his American counterpart, George Glass. And still, while Taiwan's presence here is significant, the somber processions are a reminder that nuclear war leaves no nation untouched.
軍縮をめぐる国際社会の分断は深まり、現下の安全保障環境は一層厳しさを増しています。
80 years later, Taiwan's presence at this ceremony reflects a broader truth, that the impact of Hiroshima spans generations and crosses borders. Even today, nuclear weapons remain at the center of global tensions, with world leaders, including US President Donald Trump, invoking them in threats just days ago. For people gathered here, that's exactly why this ceremony still matters. Ryan Wu, Jeffrey Chen, and Bryn Thomas in Hiroshima for TaiwanPlus.
And thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. You can visit the TaiwanPlus website or follow our social media for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. And finally, take a look at Bulgaria's Lunar Festival, where dazzling projections light up the Black Sea coast. I'm Liao. Take care and see you next time.